Okay, we are all here, so I will call this meeting to order at 6:03 and turn it over to Adriana for the swearing in of our new board member.
Thank you. We have present in the audience with us the mayor of the city of Imperial, Mr. James Tucker. Mr. Tucker, if you could please stand up and approach the podium so that he can administer the oath to our newly appointed board member, Mr. Felipe Irigoyen. So Mr. Irigoyen, could you stand?
Absolutely.
And we have to have, there's certain folks like judges, legislative officials that can administer oaths, which is why we're very lucky and grateful to have Mr. Mayor Tucker here to help us with those.
All right, let's get started. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I solemnly swear.
I, Felipe, sorry. Oh, go ahead. I, Felipe Irigoyen, solemnly swear
Or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose or evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties about what I'm at.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming again.
So with that, we can have the roll call, please.
Director Burnwood, Director Goodfellow.
Here.
Director Garcia.
Here.
Director Proctor, Director Tucker, Director Valdez,
Here.
and Director
You can go ahead.
Irigoyen.
Here.
I'm gonna practice that one.
No problem. Okay. Thanks.
If we can all stand for the swearing in.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Correct. There's no requests for remote appearance.
So consideration for the approval of the agenda. In case of an emergency, items may be added to the agenda by a majority vote of the board of directors. An emergency is defined as a work stoppage, a crippling disaster, or other activity that severely imperils public health, safety, or both. Items on the agenda may be taken out of sequential order as their priority is determined by the board of directors. The board may take action on any item appearing on the agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, so we have a motion by Gertler and second by Garcia. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. At this time, we'll take public comment. The board will hear comments on any agenda item. If any person wishes to be heard, they shall stand, address the president, identify themselves, and state the subject for comment. Time limit for each speaker is 3 minutes individually per item. To address the board, individuals who wish to speak on multiple items will be allowed 4 minutes in total. A total of 15 minutes shall be allocated for each item for all members of the public. The board may find it necessary to limit the total time allowable for all public comments on items not appearing on the agenda at any one meeting to 1 hour. So do we have any public comment? Okay. Being none, we will move on to board comment. So, does anyone have any reports on meetings, events? Anything? No? And I will say that we attended the ACH conference that we held in San Diego, and that was very educational. It was interesting. I was glad I went. I did learn a lot. Chris had a presentation, and I thought he did a very good job. Thank you for representing well. I will make note that all of us attended, so I wasn't alone. Harold was with us as well, so I don't know if anybody else has any comments about attendance, or if anyone can there were.
I'll just do what you said. Chris did a tremendous job. Really grateful to have the opportunity to go to that conference. I did learn a lot as well. And just thank you to the district for providing that to us as well. It was a great opportunity.
We don't have any other, if this were, we're gonna schedule about 3 or 4 meetings and events.
That's just, yeah, that's just the information.
And then do we have any reports from the strategic planning ad hoc committee?
The strategic planning ad hoc committee did meet last Friday, with folks from UCSD, to discuss the strategic plan. We have a tentative calendar, which we've set, which includes a presentation to this board in November on, facilities and strategic planning, and, a tentative presentation to this board in December, hopefully regarding, funding mechanism or a finance model for the combined healthcare district. All very exciting. Things are working great.
And I will add that we are trying to touch base on regular as we.
Yeah, yeah, we've met often, and the ad hoc is gonna meet again tomorrow.
Other comments or questions, then we'll go on to the consent calendar. So any member of the board may request that items for the consent calendar be removed for discussion. Items so removed shall be acted upon separately immediately following approval of items remaining on the consent calendar. We have the approval of the minutes for the meetings of September 11th and September 30th. And we have approved and filed the CMH expenses financial report for August 2025. Accept the consent calendar, or does somebody want to pull this off, or?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent.
Okay, we have a motion by Garcia and Berger. We have a second, nope. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Third, vote. Item 10, we have the Calexico Fire Chief Contreras is here to make a presentation, so welcome. And thank you for
so much.
joining us.
Kind of eerie quiet. I'm not used to the quietness. I wasn't nervous until it's very quiet. We're working on it. We're getting better. So first and foremost, I want to thank the district staff, the members of the audience for allowing us, me, the city, the department to come here and share a strategic vision that we have going on in the city of Calexico for improving our EMS service delivery, and through a collaboration with the district to improve that service in the city of Calexico. So a little bit of background on the newly sworn in fire chief for the city of Calexico. I've been with the department since 2005, 20 years now. Last year was acting city manager for quite some time, and it was a learning experience, but now I'm back to what I love doing and where I want to see a vision and the department going. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to present. I believe you all have a copy of the slide of the PowerPoint. So again, we are working on a few strategic plans for the city of Calexico. You know, we're the only public agency in the valley that owns and operates its own ambulance service. And that being said, we've owned had an operation of the ambulance since 1972 when Heffernan was initiated in 1947, having the Calexico Hospital, the city of Calexico and the fire department operated its own service since then. Since the closure of the hospital in 1998, our city was grandfathered in with a 201 right, meaning that we operate our own exclusive operating area for the whole county, and we're zone 2. Everything else is the county, which AMR currently operates. The rest, it was Gold Cross before, now AMR has come into the city. So some of the things that we're working on as a city, as me as a department, and trying to improve our service, right, is kind of working on a strategic plan and improving our service. You know, we service the city of Calexico has a census of about 40,000, which doubles throughout the 12 hours a day because we're neighbors with 2.2 million people across the border. And just thinking about, you know, the port of entry, we don't only respond to one port of entry, we respond to 2. So that's the pedestrian crossing at 200 East First and the 300 West Second, which is the vehicular port of entry. So the port of entry takes up 33% of our time a day. Forwarded 5 to 6 calls a day to the port of entry alone. What does that do to our system? It takes away from the actual taxpayers that are paying for the ambulance service for the city of Calexico. And again, when we respond to the port, we're not only servicing the port of entry and the citizens of Calexico, but these are citizens that are crossing that have any type of medical emergency that live throughout the region and throughout the county. So it's not only the citizens of Calexico, but it's pretty much your workforce that is coming across and seeking medical attention that we're using 33% of our time for an ambulance for. So one of the ways that we're kind of working with the city is, obviously, you know, I talked about the closure of the Heffernan Memorial Hospital in 98. The transition from Heffernan to the district here a few years back, and the unique challenge that we had as a border community in the city. So, you know, I talked about the background and the closure of the district and what the district vision is as a whole, universal healthcare district across the county, right? And how can we be a part of that and be part of your strategic plan? So, AB 918, you know, under your statutory authority, the intent was to create, you know, maximize the healthcare district and use all the assets provided to the district from CMH, Central Regional, and so on and so forth. I think we're one of those assets as well, right? Because we own and operate an ambulance service. And again, the only public ambulance service in the county, with a city that lost its hospital almost 20 years ago. So I know, I'm sure you heard, it's the hospital on wheels, which they call our ambulance. And it's, you know, becoming more and more busy. Post-COVID, we're averaging about 4,800 to 5,200 calls a year. We're probably the busiest department in the city next to El Centro on call volume, but our EMS is about 80% of the calls. So 80% of those calls are medical transport or calling 911 for the ambulance. And most of the time, we're relying on, you know, which we are working great with the Director of Operations, Brandon Wall, to create a mutual aid agreement with AMR, which would be the first ever in the county to have that type of agreement. I will be taking that to council next week for approval. So we've met with them. We will be having some assistance with AMR on anything that's, you know, for the third, fourth, fifth call that we get throughout the city, because we do average 15 to 20 calls a day. And it's very excessive, and it's a wear and tear from one ambulance going to the hospital, waiting an hour and a half, another ambulance going to the hospital, and then we're waiting for that ambulance to get back when the hospitals are being saturated as well. You know, our wall time at the hospitals are ranging from 30 minutes to almost 2 hours. And if I have an ambulance sitting at the hospital waiting there for a bed, now you're putting a toll on the whole system as a whole, EMS system. Not only on the city of Calexico, but AMR as well, because now you're taking service from their area to respond to the city for assistance. But again, we are working with the city, AMR to build that relationship and have some assistance there. But again, through statutory authority, you know, as mentioned, you know, there is within the district to provide operations or funding to those assets. And like I mentioned, I think we are one of those assets, and I think working together with the city and the department, I think we can make our EMS system that much better. Like I mentioned on the call volume, 5,000 calls a year, which have in different perspective. Pre-COVID, we're about 3,800. Post-COVID, 48 and above, almost 5,000. And that's a huge increase in not only demand for EMS, and being short-staffed. I rely heavily on overtime every day, which I don't mind paying because I'm not gonna jeopardize the safety of my personnel for meeting an MOU. But we have increased our staffing level, which I am working with the city to increase. And obviously the critical role of EMS and Calexico is huge. They call for anything and everything, which is fine. That's what they pay their taxes for, to provide a service. But I want to make sure that when they do call, we are there to respond and have an ambulance for them available. The challenges, right? The challenges again that we've had with staffing shortages, we've lost quite a bit of personnel. Obviously, it's hard to compete with a private entity as big as Global Medical Response, which is AMR, and what they see their employees. We can't compete with that in the public level. What I'm trying to do is be creative and try to generate, and I don't want to say generate revenue for the city and for the department because this is a public service, right? But you want to do cost recovery and making sure that we're getting those funds back so we can put back into our system and our department to make it that much greater. So we've lost about 4 to 5 personnel to AMR. And it's a business. I understand that. It's the retention of those personnel that we can help out with our staffing. Our ambulances that we got are currently 24/7 nonstop. The last 2 that were purchased were from ARPA money. And they're pretty much new, but already wear and tear is a big problem in maintenance because they're just a constant every day. The district, I think, Heffernan Memorial donated an ambulance years ago, which was a smaller type, but it came from the Heffernan. The last time that we got cardiac monitors was from, again, the district. Obviously, something that should be coming from the city and from the department come together, but the Heffernan was there graciously enough to provide those that equipment for us. Again, like I'm saying, our ambulance is almost at its end life. I'm looking at ways that we can maximize our EMS system by not buying the most expensive, big red box ambulance. I'm going towards the lower cost. Hey, give me a Sprinter van that we can do 100,000 and we can outfit it with the necessary equipment, with the cost, so we can put that back into our EMS and our funding and our staffing. So those are ways that I'm working on to making our EMS that much better. Obviously, the growing demand, again, like I mentioned, we're projected to be one of the biggest cities by 2030. And I think we didn't meet that goal, right? The city of Mexicali outgrew us in the last 20 years from, I believe they're like close to 1 million to almost 2.2 million. So you can see when you do aerial view, how small Calexico is compared to what comes across every day. Obviously, the rising call volume has increased. So again, and I'm not here to say, hey, well, funding, right? I understand that. But if you involve us in a strategic goal and vision that we want to create, there's ways that I am working on, reaching out to other cities, other resources that I can have. The city of Chula Vista has created an ATF They went away from the private ambulance service and they outfitted their own ambulance service. And talking to, have a great resource there, because he was the chief of Collectigo before, Pete Mercado, and he's the administrative chief for the city of Chula Vista. What they created is the ATF, which what is an ATF? It's an ambulance transportation. So anything and everything that they get from the ambulance stays within that fund, almost like a water rate enterprise fund, and they get put back into the system. I'm working on introducing the same concept, right? And bringing this EMS funding system to the city so we can, obviously, if you invest in the system, you're gonna be able to gain more and provide more service. So I'm working with the city in creating an enterprise fund strictly for the ambulance, strictly for EMS, away from the city, and letting the department run the whole system and being able to invest back into the program, right? If we're able to do that and invest in ourselves, then we're going to be able to grow this program much bigger, provide more services, get more ambulance and staffing. When we talk about staffing, one way that I'm looking into, which is going to work both ways on the suppression end, meaning on the firefighter end, and on the EMS end, is removing our personnel from the ambulance, right? Because when the two ambulances are gone, and either they're here in Raleigh or in El Centro, you cut my fire department in half, because you remove 4 people from firefighting, because we do dual role. So you're staffing 10, and you're left with 6. 2 captains, 2 engineers, and only 2 firemen. So we're heavily relying on mutual aid from the county and El Centro to help us. Statistics is 17 firemen per 1 structure fire. We have 6. If we create, which I'm working on as well, is a single role, non-safety position at a lower rate and strictly running the ambulance, then I remove my personnel and put them on the fire, which is beneficial on both sides. The EMS, the ambulance will keep running as a service, and my fire department will be fully staffed for the community and citizens of Colorado. So I'm working on that. I've already done the legwork on job descriptions, possible costs on what it would entail. And again, working with Pete Mercado, he has provided his staff and his EMS administrators to help the city and see what we can do with what we're currently generating in funds and how we can put that back into the system. On the financial support, right? Like I'm saying, I'm not a type of person that's gonna come and say, hey, give me. Let me do my job. That's what I was put here for. Let me work on ideas so we can help each other out. And obviously, starting up a cost for a pilot program, getting the first ambulance and starting with a single role, which is at a lower cost, and removing at least 2 firefighters from the ambulance would be huge, right? Again, collaborating on both ends. Equipment and operations, like I mentioned, the Heffernan, when it was still in the city of Collectico, 1 ambulance came from the Heffernan and our cardiac monitor came from the Heffernan. And it's my job now to seek funds, how I can replace those and look into getting that equipment back. Our coverage area, obviously, we respond to the city of El Centro and the city of Raleigh. Are we getting here on time? Are we meeting our time? We are working with the county and David Preglo, Ms. Angulo, and making sure that we're being compliant in all our times, responding times and whatnot, which we have been really good having that relationship and getting our station and our EMS system where it needs to be. So there are things moving forward. Obviously, revenue opportunities that we have, that I have, that I can bring to the city and bring to the department is, we just had a meeting with PPGMP, right? Public Provider Government Emergency Medical Transport. It's a state program for Medicare reimbursement. So what I did set up is making sure that we're capturing anything and everything that we can on the reimbursement end, because we are 71% Medicare, Medicaid in the city. But if we're able to capture that back, we get the most return we are gonna be able to put that back into maybe this ATF fund that we're looking to, create. This year alone, I know I have the 23-24 numbers here, but this year alone, the ambulance service is 19% increase with 2.5 million in revenue. That's 2.5 million, not including the operations that I'm working on cutting to put back into a system that we can create, and then EMS and transporting it be that much greater. And I would think, the potential partnership between the district and the city and the department, again, it's a strategic vision on seeing how we can both work together on our end to create this funding source, as well as to maximize the service for the whole city. That's my whole goal, right? My whole goal is when someone calls 911, like I said, I want our ambulance to be there because it's a public service that they're paying for and they deserve. And again, partnership with IVHD, we can create, provide funding for ambulances, staffing, and equipment. We can both work together to bring this vision to fruition. I would also, with the department, we're creating a full training community outreach environment, which I think even working with the county, they did a sidewalk CPR at the local Walmart, and the community loved it. They say, hey, well, we need more of that. So now I'm opening my department to have a community outreach and have citizens come in, even if it's a basic CPR 3-minute first responder, basic life, just to open them up and have that community outreach come in is huge. Because the community is everything to me, right? I've served this community for 20 years, and why not give back to the community? And obviously, the alignment of the statutory mandate for AB 19, it's stated in the wording in the bill, the funding source that is available. But I think working together, we can make good things happen. And again, the policy alignment, like I mentioned, the district was formalized to maximize healthcare for the whole valley, not just certain areas, but the whole county as a whole. And I think you guys are getting there. It's a lot of legwork. It's a couple of years in the making, and it's still going. And there's still the transition with central regional and whatnot. So it is a work in progress. But again, just to don't forget and about the city and get us involved in your strategic plan and create a way that we can help each other. And I think just closing, I think the partnership between IVHD and the city of Plexico will restore healthcare equity for the border community left without hospital since 1998. And if the partnership comes to fruition, it will ensure timely and life-saving EMS access for decades. And again, thank you for your time, and open it up for any questions or concerns or any feedback that you might have.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't know a lot about this, as far as EMS service, as far as the best way to operate those. I've always heard great things about the Plexico Fire Department. That has been something that is visited, by the way. Always heard you got the first rate. As far as like you mentioned, discussing with AMR and then covering some secondary coverage there for you. Has there been any conversation, and is it possible for AMR to just cover that area in general and maybe reverse the roles and then call in Calexico Fire Department if they need the additional assistance themselves?
There has, obviously, I think there has been discussion, but when the city is very protective of their EMS and their department and their ambulance, they don't want to let that go. So, and then understanding that if AMR comes in, the president, they can charge whatever rate they want, right? As a public entity, we can't. We have to charge what's available through, Medicare, Medi-Cal, and a certain rate for the public spectrum. If AMR were to come in, you would have an uproar in the city of Plexico because now it can be 300% markup, 200% markup, whatever it is that they want to provide. The agreement that we have is kind of for surge protection, right? If we get that third ambulance call or the fourth medical call, I think the Beaver Station is the closest one to us, and they would help us out on that end. The same goes for AMR. They call us to mutual aid and we go out of our service area. We go out central or whatever else, service area that they're requesting. I think on the end of looking at what the ambulance is bringing in and the city not wanting to lose that, and I don't want to say revenue because it's the cost service for the community, right? The cost service, the public service. But what we're doing on our end is trying to capture as much of that cost recovery to put back into the service. And but there, like you said, there has been that discussion, but I think the community would not want their ambulance to go away because it's the only public ambulance service that they have, that they've had for years, and to see someone else come into their, that it would, I don't think it would be go well on the, like the community outreach part.
I think I'm question. How much in funds do you receive from the city and?
For the whole department or for our whole department budget is 6.6.
Additional for the ambulance?
We do not.
So 6.2 is for ambulance and five. And that's on top of the 1.2 or whatever the.
With the, everything that comes in from the ambulance currently, the 2.5 million goes to the general fund. It doesn't stay with, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to have that funding source stay within the department. Because if I'm providing the service, I can reinvest in my EMS service, just like the city of Chula Vista did, and create a bigger EMS service, right? And that's kind of the thing that I'm working on down south with administration and with.
I just have a quick question, because what, revenue is 2.5 million right now. What percentage does that cover on your expenses?
So one of the areas that we're probably about $1 million in operation. And one of the things that my focus was, is renegotiating our ambulance billing, right? We were at 10% billing that hadn't been renegotiated since 2009. So I'm coming into a department that's kind of falling behind, and I'm catching up on a department that's 20 years behind on a lot of things. So how I can maximize our return and make this idea and the vision a success is, right, let's cut which I negotiated our billing from 9.75 to 4.75. I cut it in half. So now that's more return for the city, or for the city, hopefully come back to the department. What we're doing, taking the council next on the 15th, is a discussion and review. So our EMS fees were last updated in 2018. Prior to that, 1992. I'm sure Mr. Valdez was there when that was, which was $442 a transport. So we're in a bad debt, right? We're providing the service, but we're only charging $400 per transport that hadn't been updated in quite some time. So they updated those fee services back in 2018 to I believe $1,200, but 70% of that is what we're getting in return because of Medicare, Medi-Cal. We're heavy on 32% on Medicare, 34% on Medi-Cal, I believe like 9% insurance, and then other, right? So what they did is did an EMS study. The study recommended, hey, well, you need to charge this if you want to continue operating your system and make it that much better in 5 years. So going back and seeing what the EMS study recommended and suggested, they increased the rate, but it also included a 5-year CPF, which I come to find out didn't happen. So now I'm coming back to the council and say, hey, well, that was approved. With this, I think we should up our fees again. That was, for 7 years instead of the 5, because why would I goes back to 2023. Let's get us current. Let's add an additional 5-year CPI. Why? Because I don't want to come back every year increasing our EMS rate when it's slowly going up. To be able to capture and make the revenue source that much better. To have this vision of funding, having this fund go back to the department, right? Like you mentioned, 2.5 of it goes strictly to the general fund. I get some of it. I want all of it, but it doesn't have to be. So that's my job down there, is to make sure that I'm able to capture all this, just like the city of Chula Vista did, to be able to provide the service, much better service. Yeah,
What's your percentage of funding each one?
I believe it's 90%. So
And what are your revenues on that one? Do you collect it all?
we do, but not as, we get a lot of, and then, you know, it's within every patient's right to dispute any medical claim. So we do get a lot of those from Whitman, our billing company. But I can provide those numbers for you and email it to you, but that's kind of our pyramid for on the line, in 2024.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And how long would take it to establish the ATM?
So working with the city and working with, City of Chula Vista, actually their EMS analysts that created the whole program for their, ambulance system. The city of Chula Vista charges $2,800 a call. And they're a public service, right? We can't, because of the inflation of San Diego County and whatnot. They generate 23 million a year and just their ambulance. That's saved in the system. That puts back into the system. That, I'm not there yet, not even close, but we working with the city and say, hey, we need to have, this ATF fund. Let's start working on it so we can start removing these funds from the general fund so we can put back into ourselves and put back into the EMS so we can provide the service. So I'm working with the city on that and giving these numbers. Again, I don't want to pull that from the general fund and be a greedy and be someone that, you know, this is mine. Want to work with the city because we're all a team as a whole, right? Every department is a team as a whole. And then start softly removing some of these funds and putting it back into this ATF fund so we can start adding more ambulances, adding more staffing, providing that better service. So I'm currently still working with the city on transitioning that. So hopefully in the next couple months, a year, we can get the thing going.
And when you do that, then it will be sustainable without asking.
On the EMS side, we would be
on the
self-sustainable.
side.
And we'll be able to provide that much better service. Right? I think the 4 ambulances in Calexico is about right. And we're currently at 2. Good night.
On the taxes that the service is paying, is that part ambulance and fire department is part of that tax besides the helping unit?
On the tax from what?
The tax that citizens pay.
Well, it's the property tax that covers fire and EMS through either a CFD or the property tax.
I have one question for clarification. You mentioned that your budget from the city is 6.2 million
For
for your department as a whole.
yeah.
So if you don't create the ATF and you get more money, that doesn't necessarily mean that you get more money from
For
the
the
city.
park.
Because if the money's going to the city
Okay.
and you're still only getting 6.2 million, you have hopes that if you can generate more income, then you'll get more than 6.2 million from the city, or have you costed out the cost for, like, because in all fairness, I'm from Holtville.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of used to not having a hospital, and we have AMR services, and we have our EMS, and they come, the fire department sends out their people right away, and they kind of do the first blush of what's needed, and then they call the ambulance service in, and then they're the ones that actually take over from that point and do the transport to the hospital. So I don't know cost effective wise. I mean, I understand I'm trying to understand this need to hang on to the ambulance service versus possibly contracting out being a better scenario. But it's probably not my department to get into those,
Correct.
but.
Then again, like I'm saying, I think 4 ambulances would be good enough for the city. Any more coming in with 4 ambulances? I'm not sure. Would be, right, they provide a great service for the county and whatnot in the city of Hopeville, Beaver, Central, all surrounding Aiken. And you mentioned the 2.5 in the 6 minute that we're getting. By me doing my legwork and creating more cost recovery in the billing and the fees and creating a pool, right? Because obviously I'm not going to go off and spend, I'm going to create a reserve. Make sure that reserve is there in case for a rainy day, we're able to function. And working with the city and finance, and I know she's coming in and she's new and like, you want to do what? And it's kind of those discussions that we're having now, say how we can come up and make this plan work, right? Because the thing 2.5 removing from the general fund, I'm at 6. How are they going to set my department? Those are policies that I kind of have in place already, depending on what policy we want to go through, either through like I said, a reserve, our debt services, minimize our debt services through Stryker, through our cardiac monitors, through our ambulance, so on and so forth, capturing everything, anything I can to make that ATS a success and more than just 2.5. Because on the study alone, if they would have followed the study back in 2018, the city was projected to make on the ambulance alone 5.4, which now I'm paying catch up. And we're fairly kind of doing things right? So you're building, and obviously inflation and the cost of living and everything goes up. So that cost would continue to go up and continue to go up if we continue with which my goal is to keep that going and provide that service for the community.
And so just to double it down a little bit for us here, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're asking for is at some point in time within our strategic planning, you're looking for financial support from us. Because we do have our, we have the clinic down there. We also, through South Central and Raleigh, we have several clinics there that can handle the minor things. So it's like the EMS should strictly be that, the emergency medical services, not welfare, I guess. So my concern is that it is strictly emergency. And in that case, yes, if you have an emergency, you need to be able to get help and as quickly as possible and get to a hospital. And that I think we all, have a soft spot in our heart for Flexico.
And what I'm asking is, don't forget about the city and the department being its own public ambulance provider. Understanding that the Heffernan was there for 20, almost 50 something years, 70 years. Unfortunately, it got dissolved, but the community still paid 20 years of the tax Heffernan money that was meant for community outreach and for medical services or for whatever it was that it was intended for. My goal is to work together, and not only, again, like I said, funding, whatever, it can be equipment, it can be a funding source, it's just a strategic plan on working together. Just like I've opened up and met with Dr. Tyson, because he's talking about, having in urgent care a 911 transport facility, which is kind of hard in the county and it's kind of rare throughout the state. You have to make sure that you have all the amenities, the staffing, and the personnel there, because they will, I'm located right across the street from the fire department. So we do kind of, we do get a walk-in medical, you're good, you don't want to go by ambulance, okay, but there is a clinic. That you can go. And we let Mr. Tyson know, Dr. Tyson know that. And the flexible wellness group also was in the conversation, but I got the county involved because just so that Mr. Tyson can understand that it's not as easy as to say, we're gonna transport a dispatch. We have a call where you can go to the clinic. It doesn't work that way. Our 911 system does not work that way. And to be an appropriate or an appropriate 911 facility, it takes some time, and the county, we're not there yet. So what we do offer, hey, there's the clinic right across. We send in a lot of patients throughout the day that don't want to go by or don't have a vehicle or say, hey, how am I going to get back? Well, they can go and check you out. But again, he has to have his proper staffing, whatever equipment he's going to have there and services, so we can make his clinic a success. So we do go to Dr. Gold, we do go to Central Regional, also Central Regional, PMA, we did go to PMH, but we do go to all the clinics. Clinic of Salud, we go to a lot as well. I'm not sure the name changed, but we respond to all the clinics as well. Why, thank you.
And I think, I don't speak for the whole board, but I know we do have a heart for Calexico, because we do understand what it has cost the people to help this whole organization come together for the whole Imperial Rally.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your time, for having me. I know it's the weather and I'm glad everybody got here safe. But thank you so much.
They did. Okay, now we're on item B, discuss our future board meeting with the.
Yeah, I'll take this one, Kristen Simon. So the board has 3 more board meeting dates set on the regular board meeting calendar, which are October 23rd at ECRMC, November 13th at Calexico, and December 11th at Pioneers. So the agenda item is discussion and possible action to revise future board meeting location and date. So the discussion at the last board meeting was the reason why this was placed on this agenda is because October 23rd at ECRMC, November 13th is scheduled to be at Calexico, but November 13th is going to be a very important meeting, which will include presentations on facilities master planning by PMA, our consultant, and hopefully strategic planning by UCSD on the larger strategic plan. So because that presentation is going to involve this facility specifically, Pioneers, and what the future of this facilities management is going to be, staff felt it might be appropriate to have that meeting here at this location instead of at the Calexico location. And then similarly, December 11, 2025, that is probably fine at Pioneers, but that meeting is going to include the funding mechanism, hopefully presentation. So if you're looking for a recommendation, my recommendation would be to have the November 13 meeting at Pioneers, to have the December 11 meeting either at Pioneers or at ECRMC, particularly because they have the ECRMC location has a nice setup for virtual appearances. You could change the 2nd October meeting to Calexico, or you can kick a Calexico meeting over to January. And I do recommend you set at least the 1st January meeting, so that at that 1st January meeting, you can set the calendar for the rest of the calendar year. And hopefully, Brenda and I can get together and discuss stuff like when's IVHD for 2026, so that we can in advance block out dates that we know the board will be at, and then put together a proposed regular board meeting date and time for 2026. So that's sort of the discussion item for today, is where should we have those meetings on those regular board meeting dates, and then set a meeting for January, set your first meeting for January now, so that it's set in advance. that date would be January 8th. Yeah, that's the second Thursday. And then set that location too, so that we can give the public notice, we can give the board has ample notice about where it's gonna be, et cetera. So with that, I'll stop talking and let the board decide.
Anyone have a preference? I would be okay doing Lexico for our next meeting and then Pioneers and South Central Regional. So that we keep Lexico in the loop. I don't know if we're fitting around with it.
I agree with that.
And then January 8th.
Be October 23rd, be electrical and
Yeah, October 23rd would be in Calexico. November 13th would be back there in Raleigh, since we're discussing Raleigh facility. And then December 11th would be at El Centro Regional Medical Center. And then January 8th, we want to decide.
well, okay, make flex go down there.
Is the plan, for the future also to do 2 a month? Or are you guys wanting to get to where you're doing 1 a month? And is there a time frame that you're thinking associated with that? So a couple of reasons I'm asking that, for example, for January is that could be, most likely the month that we close. And so, you know, if you're gonna set for January and the plan is to do 2, then I think it would be wise to set both for January. And then plan that. And then I really do think that we need to have, if we're going to 1 meeting a month, then we really do need to have that serious conversation about when that is going to hit. Primarily because of all the other things with the med staff and their recommendations and getting people credentialed for the facility. And then also from the financial perspective, understanding that the finance committee is going to be meeting, but then there's going to be a presentation after that. And so making sure that those play out, potentially so that we're not in arrears too far when we look at that. We're not looking at, December's data in February, for example. So that we can stay on top of those things. So there's some things to take into consideration. Obviously, it doesn't have to be decided right now, but I think if the plan is still to do 2, then you should set the second one in January as well, knowing that that's going to be a big month potentially.
You're narrowing it down to 1 these next couple of months more because of the holidays, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think the intention was to cut back, I mean, especially since we're really hoping and praying we can close in January and, you know, El Centro officially on board, so we have a lot coming up, so I don't see us cutting down to 1 meeting a week other than, and you know, it's quite possible we'll end up with a special meeting here and there if we need to. So, I mean,
Maybe let the water settle once it comes together.
yeah. Mid-year. This shows them about, you have about the 1.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're starting to see very light agendas twice a month, then that might be a good time to transition to once a month. Because I do think that the November and December meetings are going to be very long.
I think so.
And then just for, to kind of get you guys, a little acclimated, if you will, just so that you have an understanding, the proposed dates that we would look at doing the closings we want to make sure that those fall on the end of a pay period for them so that it's a cleaner break. Those pay periods in January happen on the 10th and then on the 24th. So again, we would be meeting a couple days prior to that on the 8th, which I think would be perfect. But if it ends to the 24th, then the next one that we're supposed to be meeting on the 22nd would be the 22nd. So that would also work from a timing perspective. But again, just from the standpoint of if we're going to do January schedule, I think we want to include both dates and not just one date.
So the 22nd would be the 4th, which is our normal calendar.
Mhm.
So That would put us
Back here, Tammy.
back here at Tammy. If I'm understanding. So the 23rd of October, just to recap, will be in Calexico. November 13th, we'll be back here at Pioneers. December 11th, we'll be at El Centro Regional. January the 8th, back in Calexico. And January 22nd, back here at Pioneers. Okay, would someone like to make that
I
motion?
saw them.
We have a first by Berkeley and a second by Garfield. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carried. That brings us to staff recommendation to authorize the renewal of the master software and services agreement for coding software.
Actually, there's C for the, we have one policy.
Oh, sorry.
It's usually much longer, so there's just a bigger list there.
Sorry about that. We do have the policy and procedure for the security management. Does anyone have any questions on that, or does anyone have anything they need to say with respect? If not, I would entertain a motion to. So move that we approve item C. Okay, so we have a first by Booker, second by Irigoyen. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Okay, now we are on item B, with the staff recommends action to authorize the renewal of the master software and services agreement.
So this is our coding software. There's no changes. It's renewal, but we did add language that would terminate based off the merger. They also did a locational center that's used at the end of. It used to be called 3 and it's called that was we didn't use it as well. They used to have 3. And they have the same language to make sure that their contracts aren't.
We also agree with people who give us a better deal on up together, right?
That's the plan.
That is cancelable once we.
So we can renegotiate a new contract between the two facilities. Good, have one.
That was fun. Yes.
Other discussion and questions, there was only. Okay, we have a first by Valdez, a second by Berker, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. That brings us to item E, staff recommends action to authorize to approve amendment of professional service agreement for Patrick Suite MED.
So this agreement is to authorize and approve the amendment. Dr. Patrick Sweet, MD, currently has an agreement with us. No language in the contract has changed except giving him the approval to add any position that's approved by our medical staff under this contract. So to add another family medicine and hospitalist that has joined this practice in San Diego that would like to practice here.
Responsible for these officers. I mean, you send so.
So this is, it is budgeted, it's on an RVU based. We're determining on if they're be seeing patients in clinic, or doing procedures in the OR here. That is yet to be determined. There's still more discussions to be had. We're looking at our volumes. Currently, we have GIs that have joined the practice, and so we're working on those volumes first. But we'll be having more conversations with doctors.
So it's just more or less they're gonna get feedback on his contract. And just gonna take care of all.
Yep.
Correct.
And what's the amount of it?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we can, it's not on here, you know. But previously it was a flat PSA that we had annually, and so we were not.
For the budgeting, because it's gonna be based off of what he actually does. So the more he does, the more we pay out, but also the more we pay. So.
Balance. Yeah, so it was a 3-year contract, so there's 2 years left in the original.
All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. That brings us to F. Staff recommends action to authorize Sanders fee presented by Chris.
Recommend is a strong word on this one. So yeah, this is what's left for that permanent building. And, but there's also some, talk in there because it was supposed to finish a long time ago. It didn't, there's usually fees associated with that go for however many days and so on and so forth. And so we think that they didn't fulfill some of the things that they were supposed to do on that. And so potentially what's left, we have to decide, are we going to pay it? Or are we going to tell them we need our money back from them as well? Or what that's going to be. And I know Moss has a little bit more on that, but that's kind of what it comes down to as far as this is what is technically left to pay, but you want.
Yeah, so Chris is on this one. There was 2 components to the payment, right? A component to the construction company, which is Mitchell Builders from Brawley, and Sanders Inc. Operating out of El Centro. So there was an agreement that was signed, a letter from Mitchell Builders for liquidated damages if they didn't meet a certain deadline, which they did not. They're interpreting it one way. We believe that it should be interpreted the way it's written and signed. So more than likely, our CEO Chris and we may have a conversation with our legal counsel to find out where we stand so that we can move forward with that. Obviously, we don't want to pay full price for late pizza, if you understand what I'm getting at. Yeah.
So I guess that answers my question because I noticed the box that says reviewed by legal was not checked. It said no. So I'm thinking that we don't need to be making any decisions tonight until our legal has a chance to look at it and find out what exactly we cannot do. But
It's more of a should or shouldn't.
Yeah. And that's essentially the reason why we brought it to you as well, because that's more in line with the action that we recommend is that we do have to go through the legal process and see what that actually looks like. But it was important for you guys to see what that dollar amount is at the end there that they're asking for. And then you kind of, when we pull up liquidated damages, you can see what that difference is. And
What kind of number we win?
Well, yeah, and what we can do too is, I think the requested action is just some authorization, but it would be, I would recommend reserving it subject to discussion with legal. We can bring it back for a closed session and talk about liquidated damages and some negotiation. Because for now, we wanted to make sure that the work was completed without getting legal involved, just unnecessary expenditure, and making sure everything gets wrapped up, which, it's not wrapped up great with Tomas and Chris. And now that we're at the end, this is a lot of money, but it's also not an unheard of amount, it's actually a small sum of money to file a lawsuit over both ways. And what we need to do too is look at the operative documents to see if there's attorney's fees provision, because you don't want to spend a bunch of money on legal, So it's probably appropriate for a future discussion.
That's my concern, how much people.
Totally.
I mean, yeah, this amount here, I mean, is it gonna surpass that amount? And so, you know, but also too, the problem I have with this not budgeted. And I'm looking at the numbers from the financial report.
So that, it's kind of it was technically budgeted before through Heffernan, right? But it's not currently budgeted now
Okay.
for what we have. And so that, like, for us, yeah, I'm not marking down that it's budgeted because as far as our current budget is concerned, that is correct. But it was previously budgeted for that, but it was under the Heffernan umbrella at that point in
But
time.
still,
Correct. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
so I mean,
Over double, this
Yeah.
would change orders.
yeah, that's really concerning, yeah.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, is there a mediation clause in that agreement also?
Yeah, we'll have to review that's part of our legal review.
So we just completed 2 buildings. I'm very accustomed to these types of requests at the end. I would offer both Doug and my services. We just did this with Nielsen Construction for the ASB building. And Doug is the in-house GC. We already have a good collaboration. It could be something that ECMC could very well support.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that I would probably entertain a motion to send this to legal review and then bring it back.
I move that we send to legal.
Also,
So we have a first by Mr. Irigoyen, a second by Garcia. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried, so.
We'll report back.
Your marking was on that. So that brings us to our management report, so.
If you guys want to turn to the narrative. And so for the month of August, we did have a profit of about $1.6 million. I do want to note there is that there was a $1.4 million FEMA check we received. That was actually another project that we had applied for COVID reimbursement, and they sent us the check. So all those projects should be closed now, except for the appeals that I sent in, just about 5 years. So we did have, without that, it would have been about $200,000 profit for the month of August. The patient volumes on the next page, you can kind of see, the blue line is our patient days. We did have a dip in patient days from July to August, which is normal for us in the summer. We went from an average daily census of 54 to 47. Our deliveries exceeded July as well, and then our ED visits exceeded as well. I'm sorry. The next page, if you want to go to this, is going to give you the detail and the graph for censuses across the deliveries, the ER, surgeries, RHCs, and the outpatients. For the most part, we're staying pretty consistent with just little movements, so you don't see much change on the graph. Last board meeting, I did tell you I was going to add the per patient or per day revenues and per day expenses. So even though sometimes we'll say there's an increase or decrease month over month, when you go to 31 days to 30, it sometimes doesn't make a difference. You want to look at your daily. So we're staying kind of the same. In July, our daily gross revenue was 1.4, our August was 1.5. Obviously, in August, we did have a little bit more, our outpatient stayed consistent, even though our inpatient was lower and for that month. You want to go to the next page? These are expenses. Our expenses for July was $454,000 per day. August was basically the same, $454,000 per day. So we're staying really consistent on our expenses. Usually when our census is lower, you would see a dip in our expenses. So that's something that we are going to be watching closely. So the last page is going to be our days cash on hand. We did go down. We went from 78 to 72.4 days cash on hand. I do want to note in August, we did have an IGT payment, 3.8 million, or sorry, 3.2, and a building payment of 3.8. So we did kind of close escrow on the building in El Centro. So that is why we did have over $7 million decrease in our cash. Just to know, I'll tell you guys again, next month, but we already did receive that $7.8 million last week of our AGT that we sent up. So, then we'll send another payment next month of like 3.2 million. So it's that roller coaster I always talk about. Our debt service ratio is still hitting bond covenants. We need to be at 1.2 and we're at a 1.78. So for the fiscal year to date, there's only been 2 months, so we have a profit of $1.5 million. I do want you guys to go to, there's an extra report in here, just more to let you guys know, it's the orange one that says supplemental payments. That first page is just giving you, we say IVHD, so you know what that is, it's a district hospital directed program. So these are kind of the acronyms that we use for the supplemental payments. But the reason that I wanted to show this to you guys is so that you guys can know our cash flows for 2026. I do want to note for you that this is only Pioneers Hospital. I don't have the other hospital numbers on here, but you can, for the most part, take these numbers and double it. The big thing that you need to know is just one hospital loan in the cash flow 2026. In August of 2026, we need to send up about $12 million, just us. So between both hospitals, we need to have $24 million in August to send up as an IGT payment to be able to get back about, $50 million 2 months later. So I wanted you guys to be aware of all of these ins and outs, so I put this on here. Like I said, El Centro's numbers are basically our numbers double. There is a little bit of differences, but for the most part, we have the same numbers in our. So you guys have, the next page, I kind of talked about it before. Those are just like cash flow notes for you. These are the impacts that I talked about last board meeting with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and the percentages that these supplemental payments will decrease over 26 to 2030. And they're all based off the 2025 numbers. So these are just the percentages to show you the numbers that they're going to decrease over the next few years. And Chris did point out to me that my last bullet point up there, I did not put what that meant. So PIP payments will go away once the child is approved. This is potential. Our PIP payments are periodic interim payments. So for our Medicare inpatients, instead of getting paid on a written advice from each patient, we get the same payments bi-weekly. And twice a year, we do a reconciliation with Meridian, and either they owe us back more if we have more discharges, or we owe them if we have less discharges than what that bi-weekly payment is supposed to be. So what that means to us is if our PIP payments do go away, we aren't able to apply or get more PIP payments, we'll go about 4 to 6 weeks without any Medicare payments because it's kind of a paid in advance. So that's another cash thing that we need to about, and that's when the IVHD and Pioneers shall is approved. That doesn't have anything to do with the approval of the El Centro. Do you have any questions?
I have a question on the operating expenses for the legal fees. They're $1,201%.
Over, yes. So a little bit of that is a spread. So the budget for legal fees was $32,908. We actually do have $1.5 million budget whole year. So if you just average that out, the year should be $125,000 a month. What the system does is takes historically and spreads it out. So obviously historically last year we had a lower dollar amount, so it's spread. It's still, but it's still significant because we didn't have 420 for the month of August. 1.5 million. Yes, we did increase it a little bit from 24 to 25. I'll just say I did not increase in that for 25 to 26. In 24, we only had 350,000. So yes, there was not enough.
Yeah. And what do we foresee for how much longer?
Well, I just got the Hooper Lundy bill for September, which was upwards of about $115,000 just for Hooper Lundy. That's for the regulatory work. The good news is the OCA notice was accepted today. So that starts the 45-day window on OCA completing the notice. which was a big list for September. And then the CHOW, the change of ownership applications being performed by Hooper Lundy. We're gonna meet tomorrow and Monday with the regulatory teams, but if that gets filed within the next week or two, which we expect that they will, that will be a big undertaking once those applications are filed. You know, and it's just a lot of work until close. Because right now, and the ad hoc group knows this well, there's stuff on the real property side, there's stuff on the, title side, there's stuff on the regulatory side. A lot of stuff on the regulatory side. The bond stuff, and then just operational stuff, to, our contract meetings and work that's going into the, DOT groups to get all of the diligence lined up. The pension group has a lot of work to do, and they've been doing it. And there's some good progress happening there too, but there's a lot of moving parts. So we expect that once that closes, spoiler alert, the regulatory group tomorrow is going to target that January 24 date as the date to put on the application, as our target close. So once it closes, that will be a huge portion of legal fees concluded.
And it does also include the BRT stuff in that dollar amount as well, just so you know, as far as that distance from the 428 today does have those fees.
And BRG has, been asked to go pencils down on their work until we finalize stuff with UCSD on strategic planning, because those bills were pretty high too.
Expenditure, I can see other things, the salaries and I can see that, but as far as like, what is the other over budget of 17.5?
Others, there is, utilities is in there. Travel, training. There's a whole, there's 20 different line items in there. I believe hospice is under there as well. Hospice is there as well, they're not over. Hospice, yeah, but they're not, they're right on the budget or budget.
Yeah, I'm just really concerned about that. So just that, that before that, we didn't really concern about. We need that, we should really think about what was going on moving forward.
And it sounds like the finance committee has their book.
Yeah.
Next Thursday.
Yeah. I mean, there's two more,
Any other questions for Carla? If not, we will move on to girl
Thank
and
you, Mark.
hospital operator.
Good evening, everyone. So for the CNO report, I have the transfer report for you. In September, there was 91 transfers. From January to September, we had a total of 989 transfers. I want to highlight, so last time I had mentioned we tracked the inpatient transfers, and I had mentioned there was 100. And then this month I'm saying that from January to October, we have 161. That doesn't mean we had 61 transfers in the month of October. What happened there is that, in going back and looking at the data, I started to see that perhaps we didn't capture all the SNF cases that had been transferred out. And so I was able to get that data from Jonathan, who's the administrator at the SNF, and there was a total of 45 there. So that's why that number increased from the previous month to now. Now we do have a way to be able to capture those. And on the next page, so the one thing I'm kind of really excited about, is for patient experience. I have, one of the employees that pioneers and the patient concierge at El Centro, working together, to form a customer experience campaign, and so they're collaborating. So today they were actually at UCSC, and they were going through their orientation program, which is a whole day over there. And they're gonna come back with ideas. They're gonna put a whole campaign together that we're gonna, present to Pablo and everybody else. We're hoping that starting in January, we will have one orientation training program for all of the employees. And so we're really excited about that. We've been saying we're gonna work on that for a while, but I feel like it's finally moving, and so it's the thing I'm really excited. And we're gonna get away from calling it patient experience, because we want it to be an experience for anyone who's, walking into our building. Yes, so we still haven't decided what that's gonna be, but we're gonna. Yeah, but when we, we're gonna put some stuff together, and then we're gonna reach out to Matt to help us out, and maybe Frank, and kind of put some stuff together that, everybody's gonna support.
I have a question on that, Carol. Like looking to like September as an example, like as far as communication with nurses, we got like 80%, 80.35. But then communication with doctors, we got 82.06. But then overall is 69.26. Like what else? Where else are we falling?
So the communication with the nurses and communication with the doctors are only two components of the HCAP scores that we chose to focus on, but there's like tons of stuff in there, that will impact our overall score. And so for the month of September, we did look at, try and figure out what the trends were, and it's not very clear. There was a dip, but I can tell you, because I looked to see what our third quarter score is at right now. It's at 69.6. So, it has to do with the responsiveness. At times, we looked at like the quietness of the environment. And we went through our comments to see, okay, what are some of the areas that we can focus on. And so right now the team is very focused on rounding, going to the patient's rooms and asking how we're doing early recovery, that kind of stuff on the inpatient side, as well as the outpatient. And then we I've said this before, we have hourly rounding, and then just making sure that the leadership is enforcing that staff is going in there and enforcing, like, every hour someone's gonna go in there and check on the patient. And I think that's working, because the feedback that we're getting when they're going and doing the rounding, the feedback is mostly positive. And so we have comments that we see, the majority, I think, if I'm correct, the majority of the comments, like 70% of them are like within that range, are positive. So we're baby steps, but in the right direction. And then with just us coming together with El Centro, I think we're going to be able to do some good cool stuff. Okay. Any other questions about patient experience? Okay. And just a quick update on our leapfrog. So if you go online and you look to see what our leapfrog hospital grade is, it's still a C, but that's the spring 2025 grade. We did submit our survey. We did get our score back, which is 2.69, which is better than what we did last year. So we feel pretty comfortable that we're going to fall in a C grade again. However, that's not going to be rolled out or publicly reported until November 3rd. So when we get that, we'll present that. I think he steals my thunder right. So just wanted to update you on that. And then I have their California, the 80-1204 bill, that's the health equity, that has to do with health equity. I did present a dashboard, for you to see. I remember when we were at the conference, and, you know, it was asked what's the difference between health equity and disparities. And so that kind of shows that this is actually available on our webpage. We have to do that. Part of the bill is that we have to have a health equity report that we submit to HCI. And then based off of that report, the data that we present, we actually have to have a plan of how we're going to close those disparities that we identify. So that's this is part of that. And then when you look at leapfrog, there's one component in there where they ask if we track this stuff and if we report it up to leadership and to the board. So that's why I wanted, it'll take care of those whole things. So if you have questions on that, I'd love to answer them. And then lastly, I do have for you a couple of slides, you know, in the past, that have some questions about our C-section for the NTSB C-section rate. And so I just wanted to share that information with you. Year to date, we are at 29.6. The target should be less than 23.6, which that is a healthy 2030 target. And so we are over that. But then if you look at the C-sections after labor induction, we're doing pretty well there. And so that's there. If you have any questions for me, I'd love to answer you. I'd love to answer those questions. We are reviewing those rates, and we do have a plan that we're going to implement to try and decrease that. And it's going to involve the nurses and then also the physicians. And that's all I have in this year.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we're doing really well as far as the integration of the nursing division. The departments are meeting together and they're working on their policies and their contracts and all of that. And they're going back and forth and they're doing a good job on that. So we're pretty happy.
Thank you. Okay. So next up is the other parties.
Goody. So the reports in the packet is pretty lengthy, so if you have any questions in regards to any areas, feel free to ask me, but I'll touch on some points. For the rural health centers, all three had an audit by CHPIB back in September. They did a medical record audit and a site audit, and all three locations passed 90% for medical record review and 99% for the site review. A lot of work went into that. Patient visits are steadily increasing post summer, so we're happy to see that in mostly all clinic sites. Lot to note, there's a lot of focus on ensuring that the physicians are closing their notes within 72 hours. And we're kind of proud of these numbers. We're at 95% and hope to be at 100% next month. We're getting there, so it's getting a lot better. We did for the month of September have our speech pathologists out, but they have returned, so they're back seeing patients inpatient and outpatient. The radiology departments and the clinics did have skills fairs for all of the employees, and we had a really good turnout. There was a lot of departments that helped make that happen. For the notable utilization, I was happy to see last month there's 51% of patients that receive the message are actually doing the full-on registration, and 82% actually starting the process. So as the patients are coming to our locations and they didn't finish the process, we're talking to them if they've had any issues or any barriers that we tested the next time they come. We're able to. Hopefully we can get that number up for this month. There's a lot of work with collaborating with ECMC, like Carol said, policies, procedures, contracting, staffing, in two of the main areas. All the directors are meeting weekly. I've been to Washington ECMC. They've come here, and we're focusing right now on the consolidation of the wound care and the infusion, as those are two lines of services that we have the duplication of services. So we'll be working on that over the next.
I have a question on the surgeries. They really dropped.
We do have some issues. We did have a decrease in referrals. So I did reach out to where we identified that there was an issue. That area where we were receiving a lot of surgery referrals, they don't no longer have their call center, so they outsourced it. That where they outsourced it to didn't know what we had here in the Middle Valley. So I sent that information. And
And how about your no-show group?
so that is an ongoing issue. We have spoken to see what ECRC is doing on their no-shows, and we're trying to align what they do, and we're working on that.
Is that a cost?
Is that what
The cost center? Do they remind me?
they do not? No.
Notable.
Notable, yeah, Notable does that, but if they're a no-show, Notable remind them of their visit, but if they're a no-show, we don't have any, we have to, we're identifying what that is. We used to have the front staff, doing that, unfortunately, that isn't happening, still focused.
So have you seen the referrals come back up, or are they still low?
They're still standing.
Yeah, that was just something that apparently,
Absolutely.
yeah, got taken care of. We had a conversation with the group, but actually Pablo and I both had conversation with them about that, and they told us that the situation was remedied and we should start to see those numbers come up.
Are there other referral sources you can be contacting also to try to increase that?
There is, I believe now that we're coming together with Matt Help, there's a lot of PR and getting on. And now that the weather's cooling off, we'll be at a lot of, Imperial Market days and start attending those events.
I think we've been so focused on the merge, we really kind of dropped the ball on services. So great concern of mine, and I don't know about the rest of the board, but I think we need to do business as well.
If I may comment, in our marketing meeting, we let both of our marketing vendors know that that our big next step is to put together a large lead generation campaign to bring new patients in. So a lot of marketers focus on branding, appropriately so. We want to really turn it up when it comes to letting people in the community know that we have services here, and really earning that trust so that they will get their services here at our city. Yes, absolutely.
And with general practitioners too, right? When you have that conversation and they say, oh, well, I can recommend you here, but if the patient already has the mind, well, I heard IVHD do that for me, I'll do that. Yeah, that'd be enough for you.
Yeah. Well, and especially when we can show people the whole continuum of care. And there are also very good practitioners in this community, so we want to have, while we compete, we want to compete like golf professionals and not boxers. So yes.
Okay.
Maybe a little tough.
We'd be a little tougher than that.
Very opposite with the robotics. So is yours just inpatient or yours is policy? Because the surgery numbers are different for the month.
Mine only went up to, so I think it was July, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So where Erica gets her numbers from is the certain report, and so that might be a difference. I don't know. We would need to look at the numbers.
Our numbers are around this for the day. That's my question. She has only surgery if you want to start. But, it's like, that's what we can look at it.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. And so, do you have anything for us? Or what?
Yeah, I had a meeting with Dr. Tyson earlier this week, and we just went over some questions that the board had asked. One of them was the hours of operation for the urgent care, and they're Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. I believe they moved it around an hour by putting in lunches to cover a little later. Since when Heffernan Memorial was working on the RFP for the urgent care, some of the public requested to have hours before and after normal hours, especially because of getting a ride to the clinics, etc. So we knew that we wanted access before schools, kids go to school, and afterwards when dad comes home with the car to take them home. So I had I had part of that discussion with Dr. Tyson as well about what we can do about that. Obviously, there's a cost to all those things, right? What's mission and what's business, and obviously their numbers are beginning to come up. If you remember the last time we discussed that, his numbers had come down to 10 a day, and he needed about 24 to break even. The numbers came up for the first week of this month to 81. The previous month he's had 360 something patients. To date, since he opened the urgent care, he's seen 2,983 patients. I did send an informational dashboard to you by email before the meeting. I couldn't get it to the meeting because it was after the agenda had already posted when I got the information. But I'll streamline that, and hopefully I'm gonna, if with Carol's permission, I'm gonna try to make a report for the urgent care so that we can have something that when you look at it, there's kind of some symmetry on both of them. That way it'd be easier to read. Okay. The other one is there was interest by a provider, Dr. Palacadetti, for putting cardiology services on the south building of the urgent care. And obviously that was brought up to us this week. Our CEO, Chris, and I haven't had a conversation to discuss that yet. And it's something that he's interested in subleasing the south building. And obviously that's, we got to look at the greater scheme of things before we start making those decisions. But we did have began that discussion already. And that's it for now. If you have any questions.
I just think for him, I mean, it's his business, right? I think the more availability, the better for mental pressure for individuals. If you have any question whether they're open or not, you've gone once or twice, they've been closed, you might, when you get in the ambulance, you might just say, just take me down Central, and I'll probably mess around.
Mm.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah. Especially if you have an emergency, you don't want to wonder if they're going to open.
Right. Okay, so. Thank you so much. And Chris?
All right, so I was gonna tell you about OCA, but.
Oh, man.
That's right. So yeah, it's one step closer to, pretty happy about that. And that was hot off the press just a couple hours ago that we found that out. The master planning process is actually going along very well. We've had a number of good conversations with them and also with our seismic folks. Have another meeting today. They're starting to take some of the spaces that we said, yeah, this looks good to us, and starting to formulate like what some of those layouts will look like in those spaces. And so we'll give more detail on that as time will come. We should have more of that by next week is what we're told. And so you guys have, again, at the next meeting, they're going to come out. They gave us a preview of that presentation that they're going to give you guys next week, just to kind of give you an understanding of what, why we're going through the process that we're going through, and understanding the difference between the different NPC ratings and why we have to have these 4 and 5 ratings in the end. And so you'll get that information prior to actually getting the presentation of what the master plan or a recommendation is, so you have a better understanding of that process. So that will happen at the next board meeting, and that's going pretty well so far. The other thing I want to make sure that the board is aware of, Pablo and I have met with ECRMC, or excuse me, with UCSD on the strategic plan, and have put a lot of work into that. Actually, this last week in particular, a lot of good momentum going forward with that. And then also along that was the service line pieces as well. So we're really starting to hone in on some of those pieces and the amounts that we feel that services that are leaving the valley that we think that we can keep here, what those percentages look like, what that could potentially affect as far as like our numbers are concerned. And that's something that we're working with with UCSD as well on, and we have another meeting this next week on that as well. and both Dave and Carly have been part of those conversations as well in that process. So a lot of work going on that end. And then, as you heard from pretty much everybody that's talked so far, on the integration side, you know, once we've been working together for a while, but having that MOU for those shared services, those 13 areas, has really kind of kicked that off a lot. And so there's a lot more movement happening on that end. And so we're pretty excited about what that looks like and how that's starting to form and shape. So a lot of good work happening by a lot of people, not just those in this room, but some of our directors and managers, and even on down to some of our frontline staff and some of the things that have come out there. I know we've had meetings this week in particular with the staff at ECRMC with regards to the benefits, so that they have an understanding of what those look like as they come over. Luis, the CHRO over there, myself have met with our brokers to kind of give an understanding of this is what they look like side by side. That was prior to their meetings, so that they could have a better rundown of, okay, this is what we offer at this location, this is what we offer at that location currently, and here's how it will be different when it all comes together. And so they had two pretty good meetings this last little bit on that. It went from just those type of benefits. They explained to us that it went more into the like, okay, well, what does our PTO look like? And so those are the questions and things like that they're asking. And so they were able to have a pretty good conversation this week about that and help that process. So a lot of movement happening there. One of the big things that we've got going on is our server meeting. We actually have a meeting set up with them on the 23rd. So the next day that we have our board meeting actually. And this one, it will be a pretty robust conversation that we're going to have with them about the direction forward. So I imagine that we'll still have more questions than answers, but I think this is an excellent step going forward as far as what we've been talking to them about. They've had a lot more time to be able to say what they think they can do. So we're hoping they'll come out with some more information from that perspective, so we can start to really understand what this timeline is going to look like. Because I think that as we go through this process, that's probably going to be one of our longest pieces of this merger, outside of, you know, some of the normal stuff from like the culture and blending everything together. I think it's going to be Cerner is going to be the piece that's going to outlast all of those things, and so hopefully we'll have a much better understanding from the 23rd on what that could potentially look like, that we can let you guys know about, so that you're aware, because that's going to be a big piece for all of us. There's a delicate balance between how this stuff plays out in Cerner, and then also how it plays out with our payers, how it plays out with the chow, and all of those timing. And if any of those are off, then it does affect the how we're able to bill. And so, of course, that obviously affects the monies coming in. And so as we're going through it on the PMH side, it gives us an opportunity to see how we can better handle that as we bring in ECRMC through this process. So hopefully we'll be able to make that much more seamless than it has been already to this point for the PMH side. So it's just, again, I think it's going to be a really good meeting for us to give us hopefully a decent baseline that we'll be able to let you guys know about as we move forward. We'll probably have a plan B. Let's see.
Okay. I just want to be.
On this one,
because
yeah.
Reimbursed.
And if Dave has anything to do with, we'll have a D. And then also on that day, it's going to be a very busy day. We will actually have Senator Padilla out here in the area. He's going to be meeting with the two teams. He wants to do a walkthrough over at ECRMC, meet with the leadership, including UCSD, and kind of talk about, hey, we're well into this process now. We're almost closed. What does this look like? what other things might we need, and so forth. And so that will happen on the 23rd as well. So we'll have that meeting that we'll be able to report out on. So you guys can look forward to that. One of the things I just want to bring up is, we talked before about some of the issues that we're running into with call coverages with some of our positions. And that's running into, we have that with the feed side. We have some of that with the OB. And the PEDS and NICU, but we also have with OB, and then now we have that with ortho. And so we're looking at other options that we can do from that standpoint, but just wanted to make you guys aware of the fact that we do have some call coverage issues in those three areas in particular that we're working on. And some of them are easier to build than others, and some of them are pretty new. And so we're still working through the process to figure out how we're going to make some of those things work. We're working with the guys out of Arizona still on how that works. So I can give you an idea on some of the issues that we're up against from the contract standpoint. So, for example, one of the and it's a very, the concerns that have been brought up are 100% relevant. The idea for them right now, whenever we put in somebody in a locum, pay them at a flat daily rate, we do all the billing and so forth, and that's kind of how we offset that, right? So if we do that and we set them at a rate right now, that rate is locked in for 12 months. We can't change it. We can't change any contracts from a monetary standpoint that we do currently. We cannot change any of those for 12 months. It is what it is for that 12 months. There's a lot of discussion about what that's going to look like when we come together and all of the stuff with ECRFC comes over as well, and how that's going to increase the numbers. And so they also don't want to be locked in on that lower number. But that higher number, we don't even know what that number looks like. We don't know if it will change anything, but we also have an obligation from a call standpoint and from a start clock standpoint to make sure that we don't overpay people with these as well. And so if the numbers don't, like if we try to do it in anticipation of that, it's possible we could be in violation of that because the numbers don't dictate. What was that?
We can't do a temporary agreement?
No. Unfortunately, that is something that's locked in for 12 months. That we do that way. We can change different aspects of the contract. We could even, like in some cases, depending on how it's set up, you could adjust volumes so that it could match. But that's not going to be the case with this one because it's a completely different contract. It's on call, so it's what comes in. And so it's not like we can affect that the same way that we can in other things, like if we're doing something with a clinic or whatnot. So there's a little bit more to that makes it a little bit more difficult. And so I know that's one of the concerns that they have. And some of the same concerns that many of the physicians and doctors share as we go into this. Like there's a lot of questions, like what is this going to look like when it all comes together? Nobody wants to do anything right now because it could change and you don't want to be locked into it for that 12 months. And so everybody kind of wants to see how it plays out so that we can manage the contract appropriately, essentially, as we can down to. So there are some of those issues that we're running into with some of these things. The ones with the orthos for the gentleman coming out of Arizona in particular, that's a concern that they had that we've had to work with and try to be creative on how we can manage that. So, but it's something I just want to keep you guys in the loop on that you may be hearing about and things that we're working through that process. And don't want you to hear it somewhere else. So get updated on that. And then the last thing that I have for you guys, and depending on who you talk to, this could be the most important. But the gala, I'm supposed to ask you guys on who's going to be attending. If you're bringing a +1, so that we can make sure we have the appropriate reservation set up for you guys. So if this isn't something I have to do, put on record. But after this, if you want to go ahead and tell me what that number is, we can make sure we have the appropriate amount of tables for you guys. And that's all I've got.
Thank you.
I have no public report today.
Okay. With that, we have our items for our future agenda. Anything we need to list for the 23rd? It sounds like you already gave us a preview of what could possibly be there.
Possibly our auditors, they may have to go in the November, trying to get them October, because I know the November is really busy, but
Yeah,
the auditors
really
may be
good.
presenting in October. Trying.
Can I just mention, this week is PR nurses week. So just one, yes, like, and supply chain also, and midwife, so I just want to.
So it's not like this week that we're almost over with, or it's next week.
This week, yeah,
Okay.
tomorrow. They're doing nice stuff for everyone kind of does something for their area and they try and celebrate the staff. And you probably saw the social media announcements that were put out for both campuses to try and thank everybody for the hard work.
I want to also say that my mother-in-law was recently in hospital, she's 100. And she actually came in through the ER and she was admitted and she stayed a couple days upstairs and then surgeon and she came down one day into critical care just because she has a. But anyway, you guys all took very good care of her. And she was very, very happy with her. Thank you very much.
Okay, so if there's no further items for the future agenda, we will adjourn to go into closed session.
Yes. Action based noted on the agenda.
Yes, so we should take that.
You're gonna,
So we.
Yeah.